Okay, guys, we're about ready to start the meeting. Everybody grab a seat, please.
Yeah, understandably.
Okay, I guess we're going to get started. It's about 10 o'clock. We are recording, David? We are recording. Hey, welcome to the April meeting of Cowcatcher Division. We have a terrific meeting today, and we're going to have a great clinic in the second half of the meeting. And this is like a two-parter. We're going to have Duane's going to be presenting the Freight House in the April meeting, and then Cole will teach us some how to paint figures and do the details in the May meeting. So this will be a nice addition to your layout. For those of you who've signed up for the kit, Harold, and if you haven't picked it up as you came in, Harold's collecting the money and passing out the kits in the back of the room. Please see him. There may be a few extra kits available for those of you who did not sign up, and we'll just have to wait and see on that. Okay, and as always, I'd like to thank Texas Western for letting us meet here. It seems to be cutting out.
Yeah, it was. It went out for just a minute.
Okay, so I'll just hold it up like this. So I want to thank Texas Western for letting us meet here. And David, do you have any announcements?
Sure, I do. Thank you, Dick. First of all, welcome to the Texas Western Model Railroad Club. Anybody here for the first time? Good, you're veterans. All right, make sure you take a tour around the layout after the meeting. There's always, every week, something new going on in various areas, so make sure you check it out. If you need to use wireless, we have a new wireless system. Up here on the front board, behind this speaker that's standing up, right here, that is the log-on information for our new system. We went from snail to Lamborghini, so we're very, very fast now. So that's one thing. Number two, on the table, there are some old model railroaders and a box of dispatcher information. If any of that appeals to you, take it. It's free. If nobody takes it today, it's going to go in the file cabinet out in the parking lot. Okay, most importantly, Kim Hayes, who is associated with the North Texas Historical Society, you've probably seen these announcements coming out from Eric through email, and there are some flyers here that Dick is going to start on the front. This is about the North Texas chapter sponsoring a double feature IMAX presentation of the Rocky Mountain excursion train and also another train video. These are in IMAX, so you got two exclusive railroad films on IMAX, April the 26th, one day only, at the IMAX over in Dallas, and you'll see the address on this flyer. So if you're interested, please take a flyer. You must purchase tickets in advance. You can't buy them at the door. You got to purchase them in advance over the web. So anyway, and the web address is here. So if you're interested, this is a fantastic opportunity to see two really great films filmed in IMAX. So it's going to be spectacular. So if this is something that appeals to you, please go. Dick, that's all I got.
Okay, let me get that up front. Do the treasurer's report. Once again, our treasurer is missing, which might lead to a cause for concern.
I think so.
Yeah, that is too much. But I have it on good information that he is in a wedding, and it's not his own. So he's attending a wedding, and he will be here in May to face the consequences of the group, so to speak, and to pay bills. But anyway, I'm just joking around. Our March balance was, this was all listed in the whistle, but for those of you who didn't read the whistle, the March balance was 7582. We received $1,954 income from the train show. We spent $216. Our March balance, end of March balance was 9320. And of course, we have this certificate of deposit of 22,933. And once again, just to remind everybody, we do have a group of people, Daryl Kyles, Mr. Steckler, and Harold Berenswick, who are looking at various options on how to promote the hobby and use some of those funds. So we'll put that money to good use in the future. Any questions? Okay, I'd also like to take a chance or take a moment to recognize any new members or guests that are here. Anybody new members or guests are here? Mike Ross and I did Mike Ross, myself, Dave Steckler, Mike Waters, we did sign up 2 members at Train-A-Palooza. We did sign up 2 members at Train-A-Palooza, and we hopefully, there were also 2 other people that were there that expressed a lot of interest in the meeting. Now, I'm disappointed that one of them, or at least one of them, is not here. But anyways, so upcoming events for the month of April and May. This weekend, we have the New Bronzeville Train Show going on in New Bronzeville, Texas. At the end of April, on the 26th and 27th, there is the Galveston Rail Fest, which is put on by the Galveston Railroad Museum. May 17th is a swap meet by the Jefferson and Cypress Model Railroad Club in Jefferson, Texas. And Jefferson's a great place to visit if you haven't been there before. And then we have the Lone Star Region Convention, which I'm sure you've all signed up for. That's coming up at June 26th through the 29th in Baton Rouge. It'll be a great convention, a lot of good operating layouts, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of action in the contest room and the clinics. Looking at the clinic schedule, it looks terrific. So please
Dick,
support those activities.
Yeah, Dick, if I may,
What?
if I may, on the
Who is-
Zoom call.
Oh, Joe, okay, Joe on, yes, you may, Joe.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind everybody that the early bird discounted registration fare ends on May 15th. So take advantage of the savings. Register now if you haven't already done so. Also, I got an email from a member, not in our division, that said that the hotel room block was full. That is not true. I spoke with the hotel this morning. We still have rooms available, but keep in mind that this is the busy time when people will be registering for the convention and making hotel reservations. So if you haven't done so already, register for the convention, make your hotel reservations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And that reminds me, do we have any other members attending by Zoom? And if so, let's welcome them to the meeting. We have Betty Mitchell. Chris Mahan is there. Hi, Chris. Hi, Betty. Bob Mangrum, our whistle editor. Hey, that was a great edition of the whistle last month. Appreciate all your efforts. And thanks for joining the meeting. Yeah, it must be. Okay, so moving on to announcements. Duane, do you have any AP announcements?
I do, and I am terribly sorry. I left the certs at home. I literally just realized that as I was walking around the corner for getting the old water, and I went, oh no. Yeah, it's only an hour. I'll be right back. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry. Eric got his electrical in, and Mr. Cowles, I have not seen Daryl this morning. Is Daryl with us? Aha, okay, well, we have to start calling him shortly. Daryl got his prototype modeler. That makes number 6 for him. So as soon as he comes in, I'm going to ask him why he's wasting time here and not at home working on number 7. I did tell him that, and we got one other gentleman down in the Houston area that also is on number 6. He got his 6th one. I've let both of them know, and I'm going to say it as a reminder here for anybody that's working on this. When you go to submit what will become your 7th, whether it's on its own or you go, great, I've got 4, here comes 5, 6, and 7, also fill out, there is a 1-page SOQ for MMR itself. Give me that one at that same time. It's going to look like you can't fill it all out because you won't have all the certificate numbers yet because of the one that hasn't been, processed at this time.
You mean the ones that are stuck in your house?
Yeah, those. Yeah, exactly. So I figured it's a little more important to get these done, right? So at any rate, I'll fill those numbers in for you, and then I can submit all of that at the same time, and that speeds the process up of you getting your plaque back a little quicker and all that kind of stuff. So there's no point in giving me 7, wait for that to come back, then filling out the other one, and then submitting that, and then wait. You could add 2 or 3 months before you get your plaque. So I let Daryl know I said, I don't know what the chances are of you getting number 7 done, but if you can get that done by maybe the 20th of this month, we might get really lucky and have his plaque available to present to him at the convention, which would be very, very cool. If we do not get that in time or Daryl's not going, we will bring it here and present it to him here in front of the crowd. And then he'll be invited to bring that back to the next year's convention and we'll present it in front of the entire LSR. We've actually had a fairly, I don't want to say a good year because last fall was stunning. I mean, Mike and I have been talking with y'all about this for a long, long time and went around the room going, you guys have got a lot of stuff stacked up in here that we know you qualify for. And a bunch of y'all jumped in, filled out paperwork, got golden spikes, things like that. I think we did, what was it, 21?
20, 21,
Yeah.
something like that.
So we had a stellar month. And in fact, that 1 month is better than some years. So I'm closing out, I think it's my 12th year as the regional AP chair. That was by far the best year we've ever had since I've been doing it. Looking back at some of the stats, it's the second best year overall. The very first year they brought out the golden spike back in the early 80s. Whoever the AP chair was for the LSR went around with a whip and a chair and got anybody that could qualify to fill that thing out. I think in 1 month they did 48 of them in 1 month. And I was just like, man, that's stunning. So, and as a note on that, if you've got a layout that is very, very small, I mean, it doesn't have to be very big at all, and you've got a handful of things that can be displayed on it. They don't have to get scratch built. They don't have to be things that are merit award qualified, things like that. You just have to display it to show, I got some cars, I've got some motive power, I've got some structures, I've got a basic little layout. If you've got something 4x8, you qualify for Golden Spike for sure, as long as it's got some scenery on it. And if all of it's scenic, that's 32 square feet, you might qualify for scenery too. So just FYI. Golden Spike is the gateway drug to the AP. I jokingly refer to it as the marijuana of the AP world. It's a nice little deal, and everybody can get it until you become an MMR. And believe it or not, and I'm not sure why you would want to, you can get it more than once. So the other thing to keep in mind is I had a couple of questions came up, and I wanted to bring this up real quick before we pass on. I had a question come in about scenery and civil, because civil requires so many linear feet of track to be laid depending on your scale, and excuse me, and scenery requires so many square feet of scenery, and depending on your scale. And I've had two different people reach out to me, from one in our area and one down in South Texas, wanting to know if that needed to be a contiguous chunk. And the answer to that is no. If you have an area over here on this layout that you are responsible for, and you do the scenery on it, and we come out and we measure it off and we go, okay, that's like, 15 square feet or whatever, and you do the rest of it at home, that qualifies for scenery. You can have it done in modules and you can add them all up. It does not have to be one contiguous 32 square feet worth of space if you're doing HO. Same for your track work. If you can show me the track work you've laid and we can measure it all off, and in HO it's 50 feet. If we can find 50 feet of your track, and that's not 50 feet of main line, that's all track. So all your spurs, all the sidings, all the passing sidings, everything. Measure out 50 feet of it, you're in. So, and of course that changes depending on your scales. So I want to throw that out there just as an aside, but at any rate, Daryl, since you're late, and I'm going to give you some grief because you're about to give me grief. Oh yeah.
Shut down
Oh, it's going to be a great place to live if y'all ever get done building it. I left the certificates at home, I'm sorry. I can either bring them next month or I'll mail them to you, whichever way you guys want to do it. Okay,
Bring them next month.
okay. All right, I'll bring them next month. Yeah, exactly. You know, the really sad part is they're in a manila envelope that was, I got a little spot where I keep my wallet and my keys and all that, and it's leaning up right there, right behind where I grabbed my wallet, and I just grabbed everything this morning and went out the door, left the stupid wallet. I put it someplace where I wouldn't forget it. There's my problem. But, oh yeah, big time. Big time, and the older I get, the worse it gets. And then sadly, my ability to care about it has gone away too.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, so now let's go into question and answer period. Anybody have any questions regarding their layout, any problems they're experiencing that they may be able to tap the experience of this group of experts here to help them out? Jared?
Okay, can everybody hear me? All right, good. I'm doing dead rail on my HO scale layout, and so I've got several places where I've built in gaps in the rail. So I'm not worried about connectivity. However, I'd like to fill in some of those gaps a little bit better. Are there any recommendations for any products that I could just stick in there just to have a smoother surface?
How large is the gaps?
Like really tiny, like out of
So
eighth of an inch at most?
I've found the fastest way to do this, and most people do this anyway, is to epoxy in some styrene, but
Okay.
epoxy it in. But here's the kicker where this becomes a really neat little trick. Most folks will take a hobby knife then and carve it back out, okay? So you're gonna glue a square of styrene in or a rectangle, and you're gonna take an X-Acto and carve it back down, right? Take your Dremel tool, go through your kit, and in that kit, there is a little rod, and then it's got a black bristle brush. So if the rod's this way, the bristles are going that way. And it's that one little odd tool in there that you look at and you go, the hell is that for? This is what that's for.
Okay.
Chuck that up in your Dremel, crank that thing up as fast as it will go, come up here on one side of the rail and just run it through that styrene, then run it up and over, and then run it down the other side. It will, in 3 seconds or less, eat everything that's exposed away, and you end up with a perfectly rail-shaped piece of styrene. Then you can come back in with your rail paint and touch it up.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Palmer's got a suggestion.
Palmer, Jeff Palmer.
Do not forget to leave yourself some hot and cold expansion joints.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's basically more expansion joints than I really need, right?
Yeah, what Duane said was working. The other one I've used also and done the same thing with is, I soldered them.
Okay.
And that works real well.
Okay.
Just make sure on the inside of the rail that you really are.
Nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank y'all.
any joint that you have on a curve, I always solder those. Just because you've got now mechanical stresses that are wanting to, if the curve's this way, it's going to want to do this. So I always solder those and then, put the rail down. But yeah, depending on is your layout inside where it's HVAC or is it out in your garage?
It's inside, but
So-
it's upstairs in the warmest part of the house.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and when the sun sets in the west, that's gonna be my problem.
Yeah, so you're definitely going to want to leave a few of those open.
So anybody else got any questions?
So trying to find
Steve.
a source for a heat shrink that is longer than that. I need something in the 3-foot range. I can't seem to find.
Yeah, Altex.
There's Altech.
Alltech?
There's one in
On Midway Road.
Watauga.
Oh, okay, cool.
Watauga off of Western Center and whatever it is on the west side. There's a tire store.
Right there by.
Hey, you buy a tire, you just cut it down.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're over by Discount, the one I know of is over, I figured there, hopefully there's one over here, but yeah, if you go under the tunnel underneath the airport there at Addison and get out on, I guess that's Midway.
Midway.
Go back to the right and they're tucked in up there on the north end of the airport.
Okay. How about anything else?
I'll get with you.
Go ahead.
I don't know what Steve's heat shrink is, that he needs a 3-foot heat shrink for.
You wanna know what I need it for?
Not really.
Yeah,
He's got a really wide solder joint.
well, you see, it's like this. No, I'm making a lantern, a railroad lantern with a strobe inside of it. It's for a prop for photography, and wires are 3 feet long, but I need to encapsulate them in something. So that's why I needed 3 feet.
Question asked, question answered. There you go. Jeff, go ahead.
I've got a DCC question so the dead railers can grant. After I finish running.
Can everybody hear him? How about using this microphone?
One should have-
That one right there.
That one there, all right. This is a. Can you hear me now? Yes. Yes. All right, somebody nodded in the back. I've got a still learning DCC question. When I finish running a locomotive, what do I do to clear the slot in the command station that locomotive was using? I've heard the word dispatch mentioned. I've got a couple of different kinds of throttles, all Digitrax equipment. What is the thing I need to tell it? Or do I just turn it off? No. Good. What's the yes?
Why are you going to, why are you trying to do away with the locomotive number? Because it'll do 256 of them.
Okay. So I shouldn't worry.
Yeah.
Which command station?
On this layout,
Oh, on this layout. Oh. It's easiest on the older DT 400 files, you hit loco and then you hit release in that dispatch.
Yeah.
okay. Good enough.
Or if you want to do a complete clear, you close off the 36 on the command station.
Okay.
Clears them all.
Thank you.
It's everybody.
Okay, Gary, Ray, you got a question?
Yeah, I'm, doing some minor
Gary,
adjustments
microphone.
on some of my,
Here,
Gary, step back.
yeah, microphone. Yeah, this one to that one.
I'm doing some minor adjustments on some of my fast tracks, and I have a locomotive on the rail, and if I hit it with a soldering iron, the track, the locomotive takes off. Any idea what's going on?
DC's not.
You got a electrical coming through the soldering iron, I think.
Yeah, why would that be?
It's not isolated correct.
Okay.
Something along that line.
Yeah.
DC's not disabled on the locomotive decoder.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so let's move into tips and tricks. Duane, do you have a tip or trick for us today?
I think Eric's got one.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah, you know about this.
This is a commercial.
Yeah,
And it's a good one.
yeah, it is.
Am I surprised?
Get to a microphone.
He's working on it.
I'm working on it. Gotta pick up a box. Okay. How many of y'all use Aleene's glue? And you're always having to do this to the stupid bottle to get it to come down, right? I've done it so many times it's not even funny. So I designed and 3D printed a holder. It's always in the right position for you to come and pick your glue up, take the little cap off, comes right out. Now, unfortunately, the only downside is sometimes that little cap likes to stick in there, but that's okay because it's going to be sealed anyway when it's in there. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have about 8 of these, and I was going to sell them for $5. I think if you buy them on eBay, they're about 10. So, anyway, so if anybody's
It's a handy little tool, I'll tell you that.
I've got green, white, and black.
Okay, show and tell. Russell, you start with show and tell, could you please?
All the talk with the LSR convention coming up, we were down there a few months ago, and normally I do several things for the convention. I just don't have the time this year, so I wanted to do something kind of Louisiana-based. So while we were in New Orleans, I took my wife on a little adventure through some back roads and around and winding around, and there's a bridge there, a bascule
She
bridge.
told me you were in the slums.
Huh?
She said you were in the slum area.
Yeah, we were, a pretty rough part of town. There's a bascule bridge there called the Almanaster Bridge, and it's exactly the same as this, except the Almanaster is 2 lanes. It was built in 1911, and they still use it today, still operates. I got some great photographs with trains going across it, and I got right up next to it, and the scale of this thing was mind-blowing, really how big it is. So I took a lot of photographs, and I wanted to recreate what it looked like. And if I can show you the photograph, I think I got pretty close. This is a kit. Now, I don't normally do kits, normally I do scratch stuff, but I don't have the time nor patience to scratch build a bridge like that. But it's the Walters kit. But it's fully operational. I plug it in if y'all want to see it go up and down. But I'm going to put it in the entry for the LSR convention. I've added a lot of stuff to it. The ladders that are going up outside, those are actually they're brass. Walters actually makes a covered ladder for an industrial ladder like that. So you got to form them and make them. Then I weathered them out. And then I added, of course, some roof details with a small cooling tower on top of it. And a few people walking around, and of course, everybody knows the state bird for Louisiana is pelicans. So there are plenty of pelicans on top of the bridge or on top of the building as well.
That bridge, you probably think it's a mosquito though. I know where that bridge is, around that bridge you get it, you come to the impression the state bird is the mosquito.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of mosquitoes. It was a little cool when we were there, but the bridge, if you've never seen one of these in person, it'll blow your mind how big they really are. But on this also, too, I used a little bit different rusting technique than I normally do. Everything was dusted with a gray primer, then I came back with a red primer, and then I came back then with 3 different colors of gray and sponges, and then sponged everything to kind of get the weathered effect of how it's painted. It's actually painted kind of with aluminum paint or silver paint, but getting the wear and fades on it. Some of it with a little bit of sanding to bring the red oxide primer up. But when I was I'm trying to catch all the details, so I ended up doing I took a round brush and just cut it off very, very short, a dry brush to pick up rivets and details and all that, and all the rust staining. And if you look underneath it, you see a lot of areas where it's running down. It's about a 10-part process to get that where you kind of want it to look. You're gonna start off with kind of a heavier, then you go thin, down to a little bit of alcohol and weathering powders. Then you just dull coat the hell out of it. If you ever want to build one of these, the toughest part, besides getting everything lined up, is the gearbox mechanism. They have to be precise. There's not a lot of wiggle room because because these are geared right here on both sides. And there's gearing in here, then there's a reduction motor in there. And if you get one tooth out, it'll bind. So you gotta lay them in there and get them lined up. But once it's operational, there's a place to plug in. There's one right there. It runs pretty smooth now. I'll probably plug it in and it won't work. Another thing too, these are 6-volt, which I thought was odd.
Yeah, for about that long.
Look at that.
This is a controller for a boat motor. Up and down. Another thing too, like, you'll notice that the one on out there only has one walkway on it. There's only one on one side, it's not on both sides, so.
That sounds like an old hobby town diesel coming around the corner.
Sounds cool.
But it just works pretty smooth. Another thing too, you don't need a lot of oil. Especially because it'll drag up underneath here and then through here. So you have to be sure to add, a lot of the belt, get it all slicked up. But anyway, my favorite part on the whole thing outside of the pelicans is I tried something different on the concrete. And I think it turned out all right. Forgot to put my hatch on it. You try to get the tracking and the wearing of the concrete, plus all the soot and smoke and all that kind of stuff that was on it. But anyway, that's kind of what I got going here. I'm hoping it'll do well.
Well, I'm sure it will.
That's worth a round of applause, bro.
Way to go, Russell.
That's nice.
So we're in the South Hills, or South Dakota, or is that gonna go?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm gonna put it on the side just because I have walk unders. I try to bend it over, so I'm gonna put
Hey, Mike, you got a show and tell too, right?
Hey, while he's coming up, remember when you're entering that in the contest room to tick the box that it's a kit? Because that puts you in the running for best kit built.
Mike, tell your reader scopes, okay? Let's try to keep them on railroad.
Well, that's how I get my ballast. The stones that I harvest. Anyway, well, I hate to follow Russ. But this is finally a structure that I can actually bring in. The last few structures have been too large to bring in.
Cool.
But this is, and David, if you can flash up that picture. There's a place on the layout where there's about 6 switches, it's a double crossover and some branches. I just begged for a switch tower. So I got on the internet and just looked and saw this one that appealed to me. So I,
Hey, Mike, use the microphone.
that this one appealed to me. So I used the picture that you saw there to extrapolate the size and the dimensions of the building. Drew plans accordingly, bringing all the pieces to standard wood sizes like 6-inch boards and so forth. The windows are all, most of them are working. A couple of them got a little glue or paint in them. Well, yeah, there's just a few, and that's probably more prototypical than I thought. So this is a switch tower at Mifflin, Pennsylvania, which is about 2/3 of the way between Harrisburg and Altoona. Not that I'm a Pennsy guy, I just liked the way it looked. And, but it's made out of basswood. I realized that with all those windows, there has to be an interior. And there's some side structures that go along with it. There was a fuel tank here and a.
Mike, the camera's on the other side. The tank to the other side of the camera.
Oh, okay, well, this is where they really work. But this is an electrical box, which I made out of brass, and then the fuel tank is just a Berkshire Valley kit. There it goes. Oh, wow. Yeah, the hard part's keeping the red and the black wires in line.
Look at that interior, man.
The Armstrong levers are Berkshire Valley castings. And then I got an office set. I looked and looked, and there's not many pictures of what the inside of one of these things looks like. But from most of what I could tell, there's a lot of room for people to walk around and maybe a desk. There's,
I have pictures.
now he has them.
No.
Yeah. Inside, there is a clock and there's a couple of little O-scale Griff Teller calendars. So
How many hours have you put into it so far? If you can guesstimate.
I'm not that stupid. I don't.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure it's over.
Okay, you're amongst friends.
I'm sure it's
Who
100.
knows?
I'm sure 100. But it was an off and on project. I got it started. I made some windows just to see if they were going to work, and they did. They're fussy, but I made the track by laminating 5 pieces in a row. A piece of thin styrene down the middle, 2 pieces of wood, and then 2 other pieces of wood and that created a channel with a piece of wood with 2 channels, one for the upper hung. They're double hung windows. So in warmer weather, you can open the windows.
So you're going to enter that in the Lone Star Convention contest room?
If I go there, yeah. I'm still trying to decide that one. But it disassembles.
What is the roofing material?
It's rail scale models. They're paper shingles. And you apply them. That was another challenge in this thing, is to make it so that the valleys were nice and straight. And I thought, first of all, maybe I could just cut it on the bias. There is sheet brass for the valley that's been painted and rusted. And then what I wound up doing is making templates of each section of the roof with cardstock, and then assembling the roofing material on a table, cut it to the right size. There's a little slot because this covers up the gaps, but along the valley, it has to be just right or it'll show. So I made a nice straight cut with a straight edge to that piece, to each piece on either side of the valley. And it worked. So that's where it is. And it sits on my layout at a place. I'm now planting it, and I've got some grass and some shrubbery put in, and some dirt and rocks. So it's just about done. I can move on to something else.
Very nice, very nice. Nicely done. Okay, any more show and tell?
I got a real quick one. I'm working on a depot for a friend of mine, and the paint scheme has a kind of a bluish gray color in the wainscot. The walls are gray, and then all the trim is slightly darker gray. And in digging around, I was able to find 3 colors from Vallejo that were pretty close. The light gray for the walls and the dark gray for the trim are almost a dead-on match, but that blue gray down in the wainscot isn't quite gray enough. So I wanted to mix some. And I've mentioned before, I think this is one of my biggest weaknesses in this hobby is my ability to mix color, or in my case, my inability to mix color. And it's one of those, it's 3 drops of this and a drop of that, or it's 6 drops of this and half a drop of that kind of thing. And inevitably, I'll get enough, I'll get a color that I like finally, but then I find after I start working through the project, I don't have enough of it mixed up, and go to mix it again. And even though you counted how many freaking drops of each color it was, it doesn't match. So I went out online and got to digging around, because if I'm going to mix up this paint, I want to mix up a bunch of it. So found out that you can get basically the same bottle Vallejo is using. You can buy them empty. And you can get them in a bag of 50 of these things on Amazon for $14.95. So I brought a few extras up here to give to Cole, but it's almost the exact same style of, the cap is the same shape, the eyedropper section of it comes out, so you can put your glass beads in it to agitate it when you're shaking it up, but nice catch. But yeah, they're not bad. Like I say, 50 of them for $15. So a couple of you want to get together and go in on it and split them however you want to do it. But at any rate, if you're mixing up paint, you need to be able to seal it up anyway if you plan on mixing up enough to use later. So thought I'd mention that.
Do you know if that will hold acetone?
Plastic, I wouldn't bet on it.
Did you try Vallejo gunmetal gray?
Yeah, it's definitely the way wrong color. Yeah, too dark for a start and not enough blue. This is a really weird shade of blue. I mean, it's one of those, it's blue, but when you look at it, you go, yeah, there's a lot of gray in that, you know, so.
Okay, thank you, Duane. So now for the excitement of the pinnacle of the meeting, almost, we got Deal or Dud coming up. So, David, you want to come up here? Thank you. Actually, you can pick the first, shake them up and pick the first one.
All right, we have 41, Dick.
41.
41. 41 paid attendance. Okay, first one. Better get these out. First one, last three digits, 314. 314. We have a winner.
We got a winner.
Which one would you like? 1, 2, 3, or blank? He'll take the middle.
The middle, number 2.
Can't take two.
Okay, number 2. And you win a car, and you win a car. A $10 gift card from Model Railroad Crossing. And a box of milk duds.
All right.
That's the deal price.
You draw another one, Dick?
Sure.
Last three digits, 305.
305.
Hey, Jonas, which one would you like, buddy? 3, 1, or blank? 3. Forsyth.
The other 3.
You finally won, Jonas.
Yeah, it's nice that David Duane in here to give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, no
I'd be curious to see what the treasury report is next month.
$25.
Oh, wow.
kidding. And a box of milk duds.
$25. Congratulations, Jonas.
Hey, Jonas, why don't you pick the next winner? Next ticket.
Right? All right, next ticket ending in 321.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. We have a winner.
Yep.
321.
What's left?
Blank and 2.
Blank
Or blank and 1.
one. We gotta go blank.
Right.
Blank.
There it is.
Half of what we say gets blanked out anyway, right?
I'm non-committal, but.
2 milk duds. 2 boxes of milk duds.
The double dud, yeah.
Hey, you make a friend when you share them.
All right, last one. 294. 294.
So you want 1 or 1?
I'll take that one.
You'll take one?
And
Okay.
I think it's a $15 gift certificate from Model Railroad Crossing. When you guys cash that in, please thank Russell or Avery for their support of the division.
$15 and milk duds.
Thank you.
There you go.
You're welcome. Now, I thought
Okay.
it was an interesting observation. I think it was you
Yeah.
that talked about winning $25 last time. And by the time you got out of the store, you'd spent like 125 or so. Typical.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to let's take a 10-minute break and we'll get set up for the clinic. And if you haven't, Harold, how many kits you got left? Okay.
If we can take all of the chairs and just move them back into a pile, we'll start setting up.
Okay, let's go.
All right, can I get the overhead, please? Awesome. Okay, so I need to stay within the black. Okay. All right, I'm going to start off with a bit of an overview of the parts, because as you guys have probably become aware, there's a lot of parts in here for such a little structure. So the first thing I want to talk about, and this is going to be the real big focus of what we're going to work on today, will be the walls for the structure itself. Okay? You've got 4 of them. You've got a freight door in the end. You got a freight door in the middle. You got a man door, and you got a window. If your part still has the cutout in it, you should be able to just put a little bit of pressure on it with your thumb and pop it right out. If it doesn't pop out, don't force it. If it doesn't want to pop out, and it should, but if it doesn't, flip it over. You can tell when you're looking at these things, you can see how dark that line is in the engraving or in the cut, but when you flip it over, you'll see that one side's a little finer than the other. If it doesn't want to pop out with just a little bit of light pressure, flip it over on the back where it's the lighter color of the 2 lines, and run around that with your X-Acto and just help break those last wood fibers. It should pop right out. Most of the kits are basswood, so they should have probably fallen out in your bag. Bigger scales, S and O, a lot of yours are out of plywood instead of basswood. So we're going to work a lot on these 4 walls today. You'll have 3 of these trusses. These are going to go out over the freight end, over the loading dock side of things. Now you can build this kit one of 2 ways. The roof pieces, these little thin pieces of plywood here, these are cut long enough to put a roof over the building and the loading dock if you want to. If you don't want to have if you want to have your loading dock open air and completely open air, no roof over it, you can measure it over and then cut this. Being plywood, it's going to take a little bit more to cut. You're going to have to make several passes. Don't try to force your way through it and give it the steroid pull. You'll just break the blade and probably cut yourself. But make several light passes, and you can cut that roof little less than half. And then you can just put the roof over the building part and leave your loading dock open if you so desire. The loading docks, or the deck for the loading dock for everybody except HO, is in one piece. I could not source material that was wide enough to do the HO in a single piece. Now, some of you will note that the one end of your cut looks a little frayed. The material I had on hand that I could start cutting this wasn't a perfect edge, but I thought, looking at it, that if you take it and take the 2 good cut edges and turn them inside, your joint in the middle will look good, and either end will have that bit of a frayed end, which, depending on how you weather it, will actually give it a nice weathered look on top of that. So you get a bonus. The loading dock itself, we've built before. We did this back in August, or back in October. It's basically these same 2 pieces here. These make up the long sides. You'll note one side has a bunch of little things engraved in it, little circles and stuff. This is to look like it was a timber frame and it was pegged together with wooden pegs. And you'll note one does not have any engraving on it. You're going to take one of them and you're going to lay it down opposite of the other so that when you laminate these 2 together, you get that look with the little circle side facing out. Okay? Then you're going to notice that you have 14 of these little Z pieces. 12 of them have a notch in one end, like these 2. 2 of them do not. These 2 that do not are your outer facing Z, okay? The Z's get laminated together just like the others did with your with the little holes and stuff that are engraved into it facing out. And on the end one, so you'll have basically an X. And if you remember from building that, you'll have one of these tucked in here, kind of like this, and you'll have one behind each of the posts, okay? But when you laminate the 2 end ones, you should have a solid top facing out, and then a half a notch on the inside. And that notch on the inside is for, and end scalers, don't even worry about this. In fact, I don't even think this piece for you guys cut all correctly. So, and when we did this before, the end scales had a hard time getting through it, so I wouldn't worry about it. But when you go to build this, you can set their little half notch on each end will go into that, and then the rest of them will fit down over, and the notches will make a bridle joint here, And this will help keep your alignment, and it will help, keep your alignment, spacing, and everything together, and keep them more or less straight. So we're not going to cover building this in this clinic. We did this last October. It's out there on the Cowcatcher Division website, on the YouTube channel. You can watch the construction of that over there. We thought we'd take this part of it out to kind of cut down on some of the construction time. But I just kind of covered all the basics on building it. When you get your framework put together, you can take your loading dock here and you can glue it down, put some weights on it, let it dry, and you're good to go. So if you have any questions about this, because this is your homework piece of the day, you'll take this deck home and build the framework for the deck and for the loading dock piece itself, and that'll be your homework. Okay? Watch the video on YouTube. It's out there. Mr. Cranda does a great job filming these things. We've got it out there. I've actually watched it through once myself to make sure I didn't leave anything out or whatever. If you have any questions, if you're watching the video and something doesn't make sense, you guys have got access to my phone number. It's on the LSR webpage. If you go to the officers page, scroll past all the folks with a vote. I am the top of the chairs list out there under achievement program. My cell phone's listed out there. I work, I say I get off work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but so far every day this year it's been more like 6. But give me a call most evenings. My wife teaches harp and piano lessons and things, so she's usually gone most of the nights. So if I hear the phone ringing out in my wood shop, I'll pick it up. And if not, leave me a message and I'll get back to you. But like I say, everything's out there from where we built it before. Should be fairly straightforward. All right. The next set of pieces. You're going to find that guy. You're going to find 2 of this guy and 3 of this guy. These pieces are for the, lack of a better term, timber frame that is going to help hold the roof up if you want the roof to go all the way across the building. If you don't want the roof to go all the way across and you're going to cut the roof short, you don't have to worry about these or these trusses. But what's going to happen is we're going to build this up, and we'll work on this some today. You're going to build this up, standing these up parallel to each other, and then these get glued in behind each one of these braces, or behind each one of the verticals. And then what it'll do is make up that kind of assembly, and there'll be 3 of these across, so it keeps the spacing right. I've not measured it in the other scales, but in HO, this building is 1 3/4 inches wide, so this thing will fit in a lot of places. And it's 6 inches long in HO. Now, some of you, after my brain engaged, because I would have bet the farm that I had put the gates in this, and I hadn't. So half of the HO guys, you probably have this little carrier sheet and all your parts are laying in the bottom of the bag. Sorry about that. For the rest of the guys that got them cut after that first pass, there's little tiny gates in all these parts to help hold them in, except the 2 windows. And I was worried that this is laser board. It's a resin impregnated paper, and it's pretty durable stuff, but I was worried that that's such a fine piece that putting a gate in there would, you'd probably break the window when you're cutting the thing out. So I left that one without it and just reached in with negative tweezers and picked up everybody's window mullions out of the laser when I was done cutting. But every one of these will have one piece, every single piece will have 1 gate in it, and hopefully at the bottom. And they're pretty easy to get through. You can do it with a knife. Chisel blades work really well, but you can come in here and just come across that gate and give a little bit of light pressure, make a couple of scoring passes, and the part should pop right out. So that's going to be a door backer. Now, there are one last thing, and then we'll get to building. Out of these parts and pieces, I gave you window trim for inside and out. I gave you man door trim for inside and out. I gave you freight door trim for inside and out. But the only thing that isn't detailed on the inside are these pieces right here. These are the backs of the freight doors. And I tried flipping them over and engraving on the back as well. And this stuff is so thin that it just turned it into a bunch of individual boards. So I have only engraved it on one side. So you'll want to face that out unless you're going to have the door slid all the way open, at which point you can have it on the inside and just put that blank piece to the wall. Did I see you had a broken wall?
Well, I got
Yep,
this.
yep, that's part of a wall.
And this piece just broke too. Yeah, goes with that. No, that's a piece of loading dock. It should go with this one. No, that's the other piece of loading. What was your other one? Oh, here it is. Yeah, it broke a couple of three pieces. Let's still give you that. Get another wall out of one of the spare kits. Okay.
Yeah, grab another kit and bring it back and I'll fish it out for you. So at any rate, if you don't want to put any type of interior in it, you just want to have the doors closed, that's fine. That'll save you some building and some painting. But if you wanted to, and because Cole and I have formed a bit of a partnership here, and we're going to start doing the kits together. He's provided some detail parts for this. So unless I am very sorely mistaken, what you guys hold in your hands in these little bags right here may be the first kit ever produced that has people in it. You get a figure with your kit. And as we start putting out more kits, you're going to see more and more of that. We didn't know what you might want to turn this into. My first thought, and when we initially suggested doing this building, was we would do this for like a railway express agency, like an LCL freight house. This could be a MFA grain feed kind of place. It could be, it could be a milk stop. If you've got a lot of dairy on your railroad, this could be a milk stop. So you need the freight door end. You need that guy right there. Okay, and I'll take this one home and I'll cut a replacement piece for it. So at any rate, the sky's a bit of the limit. Now, you will note in going over this, there's no shingle roofing material in it. I have been playing around with some designs and I want to do something a little bit different. So, and I knew we wouldn't get to it this month anyway, so part of next month's build, I will bring all the shingle material. We're going to put diamond scale shingles on these, just for something different. I picked up the materials to cut that with them last night. I have them all scaled out and they're ready to go. So we will, and here's the thing, I'm going to cut them in white paper. That way you can paint them whatever color you want your roof to be. I've done a few make and takes before, and I'm going to be building them in this way because DNR GW and the RGS, and since we're kind of a sister railroad to the RGS, the Purgatory and Devil River that I model, we use the same color scheme, buff and brown for the buildings. You got depot built. Polyscale used to call this DNR GW building cream, and this is DNR GW building brown, but basically it's the buff and brown combination. This is great until the guy gives you a kit and all the roofing materials and black asphalt shingles. Or gray, or something like that. I'm like, great, this doesn't work for me. So I'm going to cut them in white. You can paint them whatever color you need them to be. So if you want your building to be green and white and you want a red roof, great, paint it red. If you want a gray roof, paint it gray. It just offers you some flexibility. And if you want to watch next month and do it as watch me demo how I'm doing it, and then take it home and airbrush it or rattle can paint it, you can. However, I've done this quite a bit in the past and found that I could glue the things on and then come back in and just brush paint it, and it does fine. The only difference is occasionally you've got to let it dry, and then you got to start picking it up and moving it around and looking down in all the little nooks and crannies and see if you see a speck of white showing up somewhere. But even if you do, once you come back over it with a little bit of your weathering stain, it covers that up anyway. So at any rate, so that's going to give you guys some flexibility. All right, so we have talked about the loading dock. That is that's that long thin piece, these these four long big pieces, and all these Z shapes. That's your homework. Go home, pull up the Cowcatcher Division 1 on YouTube, and give that a watch and build your next one. If you built it with us last fall, you'll remember this and you'll get it put together without any problems. If you didn't build with us last fall, you should be able to build it with no problems. But again, you got my number if you need it. All righty. So I see most of you guys, when you started opening everything up, started sorting through your kit parts. That's good. I want to start with the walls. Now this laser board stuff, I'm going to go ahead and pop this one pane out of here because out of both window mullion sets, it's the only one that didn't completely pop out. I also did not bring you any window glass just yet. I have some more Duralar coming. I couldn't find my 5 thou. All I could find was the 3, and I don't like that for windows. It's too flimsy. So I will bring you window material next month, and this is also a nice don't work ahead kind of moment. So concentrate on getting your loading docks done. Now, the reason you have two of these, you will note you only have one window. Why do I have two pieces of window frame? That's because you will, next month, you will sandwich your Duralar between those two if you are doing an interior. So that way you have window detail inside and out. Okay? So we will worry about those later. Now, so let's start getting some paint on some material here. And I'm going to grab one of my newly presented sanding sticks here. Thank you, sir, again. And one of the things, you shouldn't really have to do this much with laser cut kits, but I will tell you one little thing about the ones that I do. You'll watch a lot of guys use lasers on YouTube, and a lot of these things use a product called Lightburn. So they're drawing the thing up, then they're shoving it over into Lightburn. Lightburn, they're setting all their controls and everything, and that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And some machines, you have to do it that way. Mine is different in that it runs along and it treats the laser like it's a printer, and it has drivers you can go in and then set everything in that. So I don't have to have a secondary piece of software. But one of the things that makes it different, mine versus everybody else's, is their power settings are a bit different. And I don't know for sure how a Glowforge or some of these other, little Chinese lasers and whatnot work. But I can tell you on mine, all of your cuts are done with 3 power settings. One is the actual amount of power, one is how fast it's moving, and the other one is what they call PPI, pulses per inch. And so it's not like, some big, long sci-fi laser beam just cutting a big, long beam. It's actually pop, 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 pop as it's running through there. And it's extremely quick, and if you've ever watched it, in fact, at some point, I'll take some video of it running, and I'll see if I can't condense it down. We can show it sometime during a tip and trick kind of thing. Because it is kind of neat to watch. You just don't want to look directly at it because, man, that thing is bright. But what it ends up doing, because it's not a perfect, solid beam, is it actually is creating a bunch of little holes. And in the course of playing with this over the last 16 or 17 years, I have found the right number of holes to drill into it that doesn't burn the edge too much and will leave the part in the carrier. So that's why some of you still have windows in your window openings or man doors in your man door openings. But what that does, if you run your finger along the inside of that window opening, for example, you can feel a very slight little bumpy edge. And think of it like a postage stamp. The postage stamp has a little dip outs like that. This is kind of the same thing, okay? So one thing I would recommend you do is take a file or a little bit of a sanding stick, and not a lot. You don't have to file on a ton, just a little bit. And basically what you're going to see is you're knocking the char off of it is really what it boils down to. But it'll smooth that thing out in a heartbeat. So take your sanding stick or your file and give that a quick one. If you don't have either one of those, believe it or not, the back side of a number 11 blade will do the exact same thing. You just use it as like a bench scraper. Just going to come in here. I make about 3 passes with this as a scraper, and you get the exact same thing. And I find it hilarious that one of our O scale guys and and the N scale guys are sitting right next to each other. Got the long and the short of it. So take a second, knock that down, and then we're going to get ready to start putting some paint out. Now, one of the things that I had suggested, and while you're doing that, I'll kind of talk through this next step, is you're going to want 2 colors, okay? And I heard a gentleman on YouTube, I like his channel very much, Jason Jensen Trains. There are a few things that Jason and I don't necessarily agree on as far as techniques in construction, but he builds a very, very nice model, and I absolutely love his use of color. If there's one thing I had to go through, and I mean, I can point out things of different modelers that I've always liked about their work. You get involved in the contest room, and if you really want to become a better modeler, please come to Baton Rouge and come in and catch up with Ray or Jeff or myself and let us know you'd like to learn how to judge on Friday night. Because most of what I've learned as a modeler, I learned in that room. It's really that big of a deal. I mean, it really is. But Jeff will tell you, because he's been in the room long enough, and I definitely will tell you, you can learn whose model is whose, even though their names are not on it, by how it's built, how the finish and lettering does. things like that. I can spot a Russell Gifford model from a mile away. I can walk in the room, scan around, I can go, that one's Russell's, and that one's Russell's. Well, so, yeah, so's mine, but yeah. But I know his technique. I can spot a Chuck Lind model anywhere in the room. Besides the fact that it's O scale and we don't get a lot of O scale, I know his weathering palette, basically. I can spot anything that Jeff builds for various reasons. Yeah. Talk to the man about bird droppings. He's got condors that live in his neighborhood. But at any rate, one of the things that Jason mentioned in a video here a while back, he was talking about painting detail parts and things, and he made the comment that any good model should have, even a detail part, should have at least 3 colors on it. And he went into a little explanation as to why, and I got to thinking about it a little later on, and I'm trying to think of a single thing you could paint and have less than 3 colors on it. But yet we see it all the time. Somebody will take a crate, they'll paint it some generic tan color to be wood, and they may leave it. But yet that still needs to be stained. It could still use a bit of weathering powder, and boom, 3 colors. So one of the things that most buildings have are 2. You've got a wall color and you have something for the trim. So that's why I said in the parts list, you want to pick 2 colors. Not every time, but in most cases, usually your light color is your wall color and your dark color is the trim. However, there's probably about a 40% chance that that's flipped. And you'll find the dark color on the wall and most of the time it's the dark color on the wall and the light color on the trim. And about 45% of the time you'll find that flipped. So pick the color scheme that goes with your railroad. If this is to be something railroad related, most of the LCL or the Railway Express buildings that I've seen, if they weren't, great big huge warehouses and brick, if they were wood, most of the examples I found online, they were buff and brown, just like what I'm going to paint this. If you're going to have this be a milk stop or a feed store or, dream up whatever this is going to be, it could have been a LCL at one point, and now some guys bought it and turned it into a locksmith shop. Don't care, whatever you're going to make it, dude, the sky's the limit. Pick your colors, and then we're going to start working on it. So everything on the laser cut piece will be painted one of those 2 colors. All your trim colors will be these 2 sets of 4 pieces here. These are going to be trim on the peaked walls. This straight stuff is going to be the trim on the flat walls. Your doors, door frames, window mullion pieces, and the freight door frames will be your trim color. All of these 2 door backs here, which go to these doors, and these with the little chevrons on it, that will be the lighter color that you paint, or the whatever color you paint your walls. In my case, my walls are going to be this this building cream color right there. So all 4 of my walls, these 4 door pieces and these 2 door pieces are all going to be that cream color. Everything else is going to be brown. So pick your color scheme, and that's kind of what we're going to work on. Let's get started painting some parts and do the walls first. And while you're painting out the trim pieces, we can actually let the walls dry. And then by the time we get done painting all the trim pieces, your wall stuff will be dry enough we can start gluing things together. For those of you who do a buff and brown kind of deal, there is a Americana color, and I believe it's called light cream, that makes a really nice substitute for this polyscale building cream color. And you can find those at Hobby Lobby and Michael's, and Walmart has some of the lines of craft paint as well. Now, I will suggest this, for, like I say, for the bulk of you, your building walls are basswood. Anything you're going to do to get basswood wet is going to make it warp, okay? So you have 1 or 2 choices. And I will always preach this, and you've heard, if you guys have been to many of my clinics before, you've heard me say this: what you do to one side, you do to all sides. However, I dry brush everything, walls included. Even though it's a lot to cover, I really don't put a lot of paint on much of anything. So I'm going to start in here. Basically, I'm going to do it 1 board at a time, and I'm going to dry brush it. So I'm literally bouncing the ends of the bristles of the brush into whatever paint's on the lid, and then I'm going up and down the wall. Now this is going to be up on the loading dock. That loading dock, the building's going to take up half of that loading dock. So it's going to be up in the air. So you've heard me say in other clinics, to the paint up at the top is going to look newer. That's still going to be the case here. However, the bottom of your wall, since it's basically freight car door height off the ground, is not going to be as weathered as it would be if it was sitting on a small foundation. So you're not going to have snow piled up against it for months on end. The rain's not going to pool at the bottom of it and not just drip away. But still, whenever you start with the paint on your brush, start at the top of the wall and pull it down. And depending on how weathered a look you want as to how much coverage you put on here. And that's dealer's choice. But you always want to make sure the top of the wall has a pretty even coverage. And if you don't put just a ton of paint on it, you can actually get away with only putting paint on the outside. But if you're
painting with the paintbrush, both sides, otherwise you will work.
Nope. Okay, so Dick just brought up a neat point. He's actually going to take these pieces and he's going to laminate corrugated sheet metal over it. If that's the case, you don't even need to paint it at all. Now, did anybody bring like a weathering stain, like an alcohol and India ink or something like that? Okay, cool. I would suggest that if you're going to use something like that, that we're going to use that before we put the thing together. If you're in the bigger scales where it's plywood, you can kind of get away with, as long as you don't really soak it with the stains, you can get away without doing quite so much of it. I did not bring a bottle with me because I wasn't 100% sure how filthy I wanted this to be, and I wanted to be able to think about it for a little bit. You can dry brush stain on. It's slow, it's tedious, but it can be done. Make sure I'm up here in the darker gray square. Now, if you really want to do something different with this, I have cut this so it is basically kind of like car siding, more or less, but it doesn't have the center V groove in it. This is basically just vertically scribed siding, is essentially what it is, just cut on the laser. And if you want to, you can actually go get you some scale strip wood and come back in and glue on battens over these cracks if you wanted to, and have this be a board and batten sided building, if you were so inclined. I don't like trying to cut kits out of board and batten siding because the way you have to cut it at the manufacturer, it has to go in to a cutter that has those battens notched out, and it feeds through side to side when we need board and batten to run up and down. That's great for when you're doing clapboard. Kind of stinks when you're doing board and batten, so you end up having to edge glue a whole bunch of pieces together. So the trade-off is you either edge glue a whole bunch of pieces together, or you spend a bunch of time painstakingly gluing battens over a bunch of engraved crack lines. Now, while it is tedious to say the least, I've found that in my modeling that I actually like the control of that, because if you ever looked at board and batten siding, all it literally is exactly doing what you would be doing, adding the battens manually. It is two boards that they have butt jointed together, and then they put another smaller board over that crack. That's it. I mean, that's the prototypical practice. But if you've ever gone over to the lumber aisle over in Home Depot or Lowe's, go in there and take a look at the 2x2s or 1x2s. If you need straight ones, good luck. Those things are also crooked. They could run for office. And they're all over the map. But the battens on real buildings, if they've been out in the weather for a long time, will do that exact same thing. I've got pictures of the depot in Chama. Those of you who've ridden the Cumbres and Toltec, you've driven down that little embankment down into the parking lot, and that first end of the depot, I guess that's the north end of the depot, I've got some pictures of that taken from the main line side, looking back onto the depot, and the battens on that north end, there's 2 or 3 of them that are just broken off and missing for about the bottom 2.5 or 3 feet. Some of them have warped up to a point where they've actually pulled through their nails and are all warped up and hanging off the building. So it just depends on how weathered you want something to look. But being able to go in and add the battens after the fact gives you that ability to customize your look. Now, I've kind of bounced around a bit in my painting, and I was saying do it board by board. Board by board will give you a better variation, especially when you're dry brushing, because your coverage, then you don't end up with a streak basically between 2 boards. Some of it I've actually, because I've got a nice wide brush and I'm building a larger model than most of y'all. So I'm trying to gain a little ground here so I can walk around and see how everybody's doing. As well as do as I say, not what I do kind of moments, I guess. Always hated that when I was a kid, but man, I love that line as a parent.
It's kind of like Liz said, so.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Oh, and I hated that when I was a kid. Oh, absolutely, in every possible way, hated that when I was a kid. I'm one of these people that I want to know why.
Yeah.
Kind of like the idea of covering it in sheet metal. That's neat. So what's the purpose of the structure going to be, Dick?
Making a shed on my coal mine.
There. Oh, neat idea. I like that
I got a
because
perfect place. I need
Yeah.
a dock and it's in.
that's a neat idea. Hadn't even thought about that. So if you guys didn't catch what Dick was saying, he's going to use this as a maintenance shed on a mine. So yeah, he's going to cover it in sheet metal, which would be very appropriate for a mine. And yeah, a good place to pull up a car, drop off.
Some equipment.
Yeah, drilling mud or whatever they're working with. Yeah, neat idea. Yeah, little buildings like this, very versatile. You could build it, man, even if you just wanted to build the 4 walls and just build the shed and use the dock somewhere else, you could do that too. This is one of those, your limit is your own imagination kind of moments. Part of what I'll be bringing next month too, besides window glass and the shingles, is I am going to bring some signage. I will try to come up with some things for maybe a dairy stop, milk stop. I'll see what I can find that might be appropriate for that. I have several different REA type signs that I'm going to do up. And that's probably what my version of this is going to end up being, is a small REA building. So you all have some signage opportunity. You'll also note that this side here by the man door, your freight door on the side's probably obviously going to be facing the rails. So the man door over here would be something that would be more, vehicle and people obviously seeing it. So I figured we'd move the door down to the end, which leaves us more room for some signage over there. Yes, sir.
Will this take alcohol? Isopropyl?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, question just had is, will the laser board do okay with the isopropyl alcohol? And oh yeah, never had a problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but for Dick, it'll be a first.
Yeah.
As usual.
Okay, so one of the things I'm doing is I'm holding it up to the light and I'm looking for a reflection off my paint. And if I've got anything a little thick, I'm going to come back by with a brush. I'm going to drag that back out. You might pick up a little bit of soot, which I just did here. I'm not going to bother to try to wipe that out or try to paint over it. I'm going to let that be. That just became weathering. So I'm just going to leave it. But what I am looking for too is I'm looking for bare wood spots up along the upper edge. And I want to make sure that I get those covered up because again, your upper edge is always going to be cleaner than the bottom. It'll always have the best looking paint. It's like right there, I've got a little thin, and even with this, wood colored paint, I can still tell you where there's paint and where there isn't. There's just a slight little difference in color, and I'm just going to give it a couple of quick little passes with the brush and we're going to call it good. Yeah, right there.
Duane, are we supposed to be doing the edges too?
No, it's not necessary. Because we're going to cover some of the edges are going to be covered up. They'll be part of the glue joint. And the ones that are exposed are going to be covered up in trim. Now, oh, wait a minute. Let me correct that. I almost goofed. The inside of your doorways and the inside of the window need to be painted whatever your trim color is going to be. So that's where this gets a little difficult, is you want to make sure that you get the inside. So like in my case, that's going to be brown. So I've got to be careful when I go to paint my brown in here that I paint the inside of the doorways and the inside of the window frame brown without getting it onto the cream color, at least so much that I can't cover it with trim. All right, I've got my, oh shoot. Sort of say I've got my first color painted. I don't. I just realized I didn't paint my trim pieces here. So let's get these over here. Now, when we go to break these pieces out of the laser board, those you want to make sure you paint the edges on. It is the number one with a bullet mistake we see in the contest room or in the AP in general. When a modeler builds a laser kit, we'll see them forget to paint the sides of the materials. And a lot of them, like your door backers and things like that, you're not going to see it. It's the trim pieces that you've got to be real careful about, making sure you get those edges. So you just kind of have to think through it logically. Will I be able to see that edge at any point? And if the answer to that is yes, paint the edges. If it's no, then don't worry about it. These chevrons also, by the way, tend to paint better when you go with the engraving lines. And you want to be very careful. Don't get so much in there that you fill them in. They're not very deep. So you kind of want to go through them at an angle and make sure that you get just enough to give it some color. Sorry about that, I was a little far back, wasn't I? Okay. Yeah, he's putting the camera back. Now, if you're not going to put an interior in this and you're going to do some blackout paper, I just heard Cole say something, I think it was Cole said something about construction paper. Plain old black construction paper is your friend. There's also a product that I learned about from a guy on YouTube called Cinefoil. And I've brought that up here in the past. It is literally a black aluminum foil, and it's like a heavy duty aluminum foil like you'd use in your kitchen or out in the barbecue or something like that. It is black in nature, and it is Cinefoil, cin as in cinema. They use this to do blackouts on movie sets and things. And I have found that it's really nice for doing valleys for flashing on buildings. But it is the absolute best thing I've ever seen, even better than construction paper, for doing blackouts for your interiors. Now, I will caution you about this. If you're going to put blackout paper inside of a structure so that you can't see in it, for the love of all that is holy, do not put the paper right up against the window. Because here's what happens. You want it to be black inside the building so that it looks like the lights are off, right? But you want to have depth to see in it. When you put the black paper up against the window glass, guess what I see? I see the black paper. Now I'm wondering why your window shades are black. Because there's no reason for that to be there. So take your blackout material, whatever it's going to be, and put it in the building and 45 across the building. That way, no matter where you see in, you can see depth inside, but all black. I will also say this. I was talking about you can get away with just dry brushing the outside if you're very, very careful. If you are going to put an interior in this, depending on what kind of structure it is, you will need to paint it. If you are going to put lights in it at all, you're going to have to paint it. I can tell you from personal experience, if you don't paint it on the inside because you think you're really slick at what you do, you put lights in it and all of a sudden your wall glows, and then you get to explain that. So if you're going to put lights in the building to show off your interior work, paint the insides as well. Even if you're just saying, well, they wouldn't have painted the inside, great. Paint it kind of like this cream color where it is kind of a natural wood color. Okay, now I've got all of it painted. Now, paintbrushes are a disposable commodity. Yes, you need to clean them. Yes, if you spend the money and you go over to like Azel Art or something like that and you buy some really good ones, oh, you bet you need to clean them. You know, 45 bucks or so a brush, you definitely want to take care of them. However, I've got some very nice brushes, but I'll tell you what I've found is keep an eye on Hobby Lobby, and every so often they run their Masters Touch Series paint brushes on sale for like 40% off. Go buy a handful of them. It might be. I know they've got their sketch pads on sale for 40% off. That's what I'm going to make the shingles out of. But to that end, you're seeing me take this. I mean, this is a royal. I mean, this is one of those 10 paint brushes in a plastic bag for $5 kind of brush. I'm going to wiggle this back and forth a little bit in some water. I'm going to wipe it off, and that is clean enough for now. You will see me bounce this thing into paint lids. We get the weathering on it, and I really want to get wild with some weathering. You will see me be borderline illegal aggressive with a paintbrush because this is a disposable commodity. Use it to a point where there's nothing left. It is not good for anything you can imagine, and then throw it away. Do not put it into a glass or something bristles down because that's going to cause it to curl. If you really want to get good with it, you've got some really nice brushes. Go over to the makeup department at I got mine at Target. My wife found it and bought it for me, bless her heart. It is a little brush stand that is designed for your wife's makeup brushes because those things have to be cleaned from time to time or they start growing funky things. No joke. It's it can get pretty ugly. But this little deal, and this one's I think made by Revlon, I think. Trying to remember whose the initials are in the little top piece. But it looks like a little carousel. It's got a piece stand that sits on, and it's got another disc up above it, and it's got these little silicone rings with some fins in it. You take the brush after you're done cleaning it and shove it up from the bottom, and it will hold the brush, usually at some weird angle, but it will hold it bristles down so anything that's in the well can finish leaching out basically. And you don't end up with your well full of paint or, cleaning fluid or whatever. Again, unless I've spent some money on a really nice sable brush, what I just did is probably going to suffice. And then when I'm done for the day, I've got a little brown tub. It's Dr. Ben's, I think, brush soap or something like that. It's Dr. something or other. You can buy it over at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. It's in a little plastic tin. Bingo, that right there, just what Eric's holding up. It's a little round tin, about like that big around and about that deep, and it just has a little cake of soap in the bottom of it. You can also buy it by the bar if you want to. When I'm done modeling for the session, I'll then would take this brush, get it a little wet, run it back and forth a few times on that bar of soap or inside that little cake inside of there, get a little bit of soap on it, and then I just do this with the brush in the palm of my hand and let that soap work its way in there, and then rinse it out, and then I'll reshape the bristles, and then I'll hang it up to dry. But between flipping in colors and things like that, unless I'm going from a really dark color to a really light one, yeah, here we go. It is the Masters Brush Cleaner and Preserver. Cleans oil paint, watercolor, acrylic, and stains. And it's $11.52 on Amazon, depending on which one you hit it with. But Hobby Lobby has it as well. And you get over on the same aisle with paintbrushes. Yes, sir.
I've also found that just regular conditioner, like you put on your hair, if you clean your brush really, really well, and it's tiny on your fingers.
Yeah, to help reshape it. The natural hair brushes, I've found that works really well. I've had some weird things happen with some of the synthetics. They don't. They really don't. And the really fine little brushes like you'd use for doing details and detail parts and things like that, they're so bad about curling at the end after a while and stuff like that. But the conditioner really helps pull it all back together again. But some of these where they're a 1/4 inch wide or so, and this is just a brush for putting on a general coat of paint. If the paint if I don't get that well cleaned out and the thing dries in it, I don't care. This brush, by the time I bought 12 of them in a package, is less than $1. And if I screw the brush up after 6 months or a year, I'll throw it away and get the next one out. It's just not that big a deal. But man, I tell you, I've seen some guys get in here with their paintbrush cleaning rituals, and it's like, dude, are you scrubbing for surgery? What's up? Just don't need it.
And what's the pair of rectangles that have no scribe on them?
Pair of rectangles with no scribe.
They're next to the Chevron.
Back into the freight door.
Let me come.
Just punch out.
There might be. Let me see what's in there.
There's 2 pair of doors with scribing.
Right. Yeah. Those two are the backers for this thing. Yes, they will. Because you're gonna make this your trim color, and that's gonna be your water color. So you're making this color for your walls.
Oh, you brought it with you? Oh, I should have known.
What you're gonna do is you're gonna take one of these back and
Oh, okay.
you just have to wash the brushes, so you get the 3D relief.
I think this is the
Yeah, and you only need one.
I think what this is the door. It goes over there. This is the back. I think this is, you've got, this would be the front and back, is that right? So this is the front, that's the back.
This is all layered up. These two.
Well, hang on a minute, we got.
You're gonna make the doors close.
We've got,
You
I
only
guess.
need one
take it
set of
back.
doors
Here's-
and one manual.
So there's a freight door here, for this end, and there's a freight door for that, and I guess this, all of this front and back.
So that's your secondary.
I was trying to figure out what it was.
In parts, I think.
This is like one piece.
That would be like. Yeah. So what color are you using for your trim? So all of these will be green, all of this will be
Well, I
green.
think
and those
they're two different sizes, at least on mine. That doesn't match this size.
Yeah, no, I'm saying.
Okay. This goes, these two. Yeah. This is kind of like 2 layers. You got this, this top layer, and then so this goes here like.
He wants these to be all log, right?
I think so, that's what he would want, yes. And these would be the trim color, like this, and then this is a piece of trim, there's the window, so this would be the trim color. I guess you can paint the door, trim color, and paint this, you want.
You want to, you're gonna have, if you're doing an interior, you're gonna have the outside, and then you want the inside, so the inside needs to be the inside too.
I got you. So then this right, we're gonna put a plastic between these two.
And then these pieces,
See, mine was cut out.
so you can use this.
Oh, no.
With the alignment.
And it's fell out.
I didn't know I was gonna get,
You don't need this if you want.
you can do an interior. No, I just painted it just in case.
Well, or the reason for that, and then this actually, when it goes here, it hangs out over there. Because it's too big. It does on the small, if you put it there, you just hang out lumber, you have one around the house someplace. You want this, you let that all hang. It doesn't take, it doesn't.
Same thing,
Something that Kim just brought up, you're gonna put your deck on the loading dock, it's not a perfect match. You will have a little bit of overhang on the dock.
To the top, if it doesn't, then you.
Put it relatively flush on the end where the building piece of it sits, and then have more overhang on the other end, you can.
That's why I got
If
these,
you wanna trim it off and not have it, you can do that too. I don't
And that will,
mind
that
the
will
little bit of
actually,
overhang
that will
on each
help,
end,
but
and
it won't take it all out.
it kind of gives it a nice little
I
dip
got
right
the
there,
scale
creates a
number
good
2 by
grip
4s
edge.
I could use.
So, you have a choice, however you want to try to do it.
Yeah, you might need something just a little bit more.
But once again, this goes.
Well, I got some coffee sticks too.
Right there, on the edge.
Yeah.
And these in the middle.
Yeah.
And with the notches on top.
Yeah, and like I say, the two without notches, you want to make sure those two are the ones that are facing out.
Right, okay. So you don't see the notches.
Correct. Mr. Ogden, you got some taco left in there, didn't you?
Oh, I'm just stating these things that swamp poly orange over the top.
There you go. Okay, so he just brought up a really good point, and it's something I want to mention, because I do not like to talk politics, mainly because everyone has an opinion about it, and I find that people with opposing opinions to mine hate when I bring facts to the equation. But, and I say that for this, there are certain things that your mom and dad or your grandparents always taught you never talk about. Politics, religion, NASCAR, that kind of thing. Yeah. There are two schools of thought when it comes to painting a structure. And I'm not going to tell you that my way is the way everyone should do it. That's not the gospel according to Duane. You can do it however you like. If you find a result that you like, for the love of all, totally go with it, okay? Some folks, like Mr. Ogden back there, I was just commenting on his taco stand he's working on. He is, oh yeah. Now, I did not provide any stiffener material. So if you want to put some bracing on the inside because you do not plan on putting it in interior, this is a good place for it. I really like to go to a restaurant supply and buy the box wooden coffee stirrers for this purpose, because for like $5 or $6, you get like 1,000 of those things. If you have a keen eye and you're at a place like Starbucks or something like that that has wooden coffee stirrers, and you have no moral issue with grabbing a handful of them, then how you procure your strip wood is your own business. But I like to take wooden coffee stirrers and then glue them into a T shape. Okay, if you can make it an L if you want to, and sometimes that L can be good to set a floor on for a second story. But typically I like to glue them into a T shape, and then I cut that to length, and I use that as my bracing. Because if it wants to warp, now it has to fight grain in two directions to do it. And those coffee stirrers are dead cheap. Like I say, 1,000 of those things in a box, and it's used to be less than $5. So, and if you actually have gone back to the office for work, catch the guy that stocks your coffee bar and tell him, hey, I build model trains, and those little wooden coffee stirrers are perfect for some stuff that I do. Where do you get those? And if you talk real nice to him, he might give you a bunch of them. I know mine did. He gave me 2 bags, because the ones he had, because he's got big long ones that scale out to a 2x12 in S. So they're 3/16 of an inch wide, and they're right at 2, maybe 3, but they're definitely thick enough to use as a 2x. And but he had long ones, because everybody now has, you have a coffee cup that we all used to see Grandpa with his affliction, where he just walked around with that finger curled up all the time anyway. Now everybody, their whole hand is curled up because your coffee cup's about that tall now. He had coffee stirrers that would reach way down into the bottom of those. So these things are about 8 inches long. And he goes, well, how many of them do you need? I said, well, I scratch build all my stuff. I very rarely build kits, so I'm always looking for strip wood and stuff. And he pulled out 2 great big bags that had a wad of those things that was about that big around. He goes, well, here, take these 2. I asked, where do you get them? So, because I wanted to go buy some of them. He goes, well, here, just take these. And if you need more, let me know. That was about 6 years ago, and I still haven't even gotten to the second bag yet. So I'm going to put a hell of a dent in it, though, with that sawmill scene on the club layout, because we're going to have a bunch of cut lumber stacked up out there air drying. So I figure I'll be going through a big batch of that. But so use whatever stiffening material you want. And back to the original part of this particular piece of the sermon. Mr. Ogden here, Jim's going through and he's staining his wood first, and then he's going to dry brush his wall color over it. I've done it that way. I did it that way for quite a while, and I've gotten away from doing that because the problem I run into is I either have to do that at a lighter shade so that when I put the stain over the paint to tone the paint down, it's not too dark. So, and when I was fighting through that on a model one day, I finally said, you know what? Paint it first, and then we'll put some stain on it. And that has worked out really well. When we had the old days when you had good old float wheel paint and you're in there huffing fumes and, you know, giving yourself leukemia, you didn't have to worry about this as much. But one thing that will or can happen is when you start using stains over alcohol paint, if you start scrubbing it onto the wall surface, it is going to reactivate the paint and make one very muddy mess. But if you just take your brush, get a little bit on it, and just do a quick pass with the stain, you're fine. It'll give you everything you want. It won't be on there long enough to reactivate anything. Most of the stains that you're buying, either through Bollinger Edgley scale trains, or Best as they're known, they have their line of stains called Vetero, and they've got some really, really neat colors. If you model anywhere that has a lot of moss growing on anything, you need to get a hold of them today and order a bottle of a color called Swamp Rot. That is the neatest shade of green. It's brown, it's green, it's just nasty looking, and it is perfect for that kind of weathering. Another good line of colors out there that I love to death is Hunter Line. Rick and Maureen make some wonderful colors, and God bless Maureen. She actually made a custom bottle mix for me once. They make one that's a light yellow, I think they call it cream. And I approached her after a show because I'd bought one, and I told her, I said, this bottle I've got, I don't think it's got any color in it at all. I mean, I'm putting it on plain white paper and I don't see it changing colors. And she's like, yeah, it's not supposed to have just a lot of effect. What is it you're looking for? I said, I want old newspaper that's yellowed out because it's blown up against a fence somewhere and it's been out yellowing in the sun for weeks and weeks. And she goes, give me your address, I'll mix you up a bottle. And nailed it. I mean, it's yellow, it's brown, it's just spot on. But they make a wonderful line of colors. I think Vetero's up to probably about 25 or 30 colors now. Hunter Line's probably got 50.
Where are you finding Hunter Line without paying Canadian postage?
Yeah, that becomes the trick. There's one guy out of Pittsburgh, I think he is, that sells it out of the States. Dad was actually trying to get that lined up, unfortunately, when his cancer kind of kicked in. So we never really got that established. There's one place that I know of, and even I don't remember what that is now off the top of my head. I see them at most of the narrow gauge conventions, so since I'm at those, I pick it up then and figure out a way to get it home. But yeah, you can get it and you can have it shipped. The stuff from Best is coming in from, they're what, in the Carolinas, I think? They're somewhere back east at any rate. And so it comes. Now, the neat thing with the Vetero stains, at least the first ones that I got, if they're still bottling the way they used to, it's coming in an old glass bottle, like the little half round, like you see a drunk carrying his back pocket kind of bottle. So they're a little pricey. They really are. Don't get me wrong. But they make some neat colors.
I remember at Pittsburgh, Best had their stain. It was over $20.
Oh, it's, yeah, like I say, it's
$27, and I think they dropped the price during the.
Yeah, like I say, it's not cheap, but it's really good stain. And as long as you're not, I see a lot of modelers doing stick by stick stuff, and they'll pour a bottle of stain into some little plastic deal, and they'll throw their strip wood in it, and they'll let it soak for a while. Then they'll peel the strip wood out, and they'll pour the stuff back. So much of it evaporates during that process. I've found it's, and you get a lot of, do what? I've never done it that way. Don't know if that would give you any better results or not. But typically I take mine and I either dunk it in the bottle and then shake off most of the excess and then set it aside on a paper towel to dry, or I'm putting it on with a brush. So for me, a bottle of stain goes a long, long way. Because I've found in a lot of cases, you're looking for a little bit of color. You're not looking for a lot of color. You're not trying to oversaturate it. You just want enough to, fill in the nooks and crannies and give you some shadow or something like that. And if it's too light, you can always come back over and put another coat on it, So if you're doing a building where it's never been painted and it's been sitting out in the weeds for who knows how long, then yeah, you're going to have a lot of dark, and depending on where you are. If you're down here, you're in Texas or whatever, you're somewhere near where it's lower elevations and more oxygen, it's going to turn gray as a general rule, especially down here. But you move up into the mountains, they don't tend to turn gray up there. You get up in the high country up there, you know, like around the DRGW, the RGS, they tend to turn really dark brown with a little bit of a yellow edge to it as it's oxidizing. I think it's two things. I think it's UV exposure and lesser oxygen, because a lot of that graying is oxidation. And if there's not as much of it there, there's less of it to oxidize. So running theory, I could be completely wrong. YouTube may get blown up in the comments section later because, you know, some scientist will be watching this and go, nah, Duane's an idiot. Here's what causes it. And that's cool. Then we all get to learn, you know. And we all know Duane's an idiot anyway, so. So that's right. There you go. Sir.
A little in pieces that are on the far left upper part, what color do those? The same as the other.
Are you not painting?
Plus, we're already on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was trying to leave them on the carrier here
We're on.
and tap them.
Yeah, I would have left them on.
This here.
Barn red.
Could be over this. That can be a trim.
I was just using barn red, I don't know.
This is Gilmore oil.
And this way around the door, if you're gonna put a glass in this.
Find the color they have.
Yeah. If you want to work ahead just a little bit while you have your trim color out and your brush is dirty with it, these three pieces right here and these two pieces right here will also get painted your trim color. Oh. The three little cross brace pieces, the little cross members. Now, I'm gonna show you all a wall that Daryl just painted. He's got a little gray at the bottom, and he's got the little darker color up underneath the eave. So that's a really nice mix of color. He's also using a pale green on the inside. Back in, I want to say it was the early 1900s, like 1900 something, if I remember correctly. Yeah, the government actually went through and did a study trying to find what color worked the best to paint the interiors of things that you could work in and create the least amount of eye strain. And that little institutional pale seafoamy green color is what they came up with, which is why you see it inside of cabooses, you see it inside of cabs of locomotives, you see it inside of a lot of buildings, aircraft, all over aircraft. So yeah, there's there's a fair amount of possibility there. Now, one of the things too, I will tell you when you do your homework and you're building out the loading dock, one of the things I found with the loading dock pieces is anywhere on solid wood where the laser cuts it, it doesn't like to take stain anymore. Now you can sand that off a little bit if you're very, very careful and you've got a good little sanding sponge like this one or stick. You can come in and give that a little light sand and get that where it's basically sealed the resins of the wood by atomizing the wood between it and what it got cut off of. However, honestly, for this, I painted the one I did on the prototype and I thought it looked really cool, and I painted it the same color as the trim. So I would suggest if you put these together, laminate these two together, laminate the other two together, go ahead and make up your Z's, paint the Z, or make your X's, paint the X's, paint the outside of the long pieces, that's the one with the little circles on it. Paint the outside, glue it all together, and then come back in and paint the inside. Because if you put paint on all of it and then you try to glue it together, the glue is not going to hold as well. You want wood to wood, not wood to paint, is what it boils down to. And when you put your little Z's together, don't paint these ends because that's what's gluing to the back side of the loading dock piece. Okay? I think we stained them when we did the LCL dock last fall. I got to looking at it later and I went, wow, that really sticks out. So yeah, I would really suggest painting them. Now, when you go to do your loading dock piece, okay, and again, for the HO guys, yours is in 2 pieces. If you've got the fuzzy edge, like I say, flip them around, put the straight edges against each other in the middle, put the fuzzy edges out on either end and weather it out a little bit. It'll give you some wear. If you don't like that, sand it smooth and just don't sand too much off so you don't have a deck short, basically. This piece, I would stain. Your loading dock pieces, I would just stain that. Leave it raw and stain it. You very rarely see a painted loading dock. These things, it's like roof walks on a boxcar. Yeah, you'll see museums paint them now because they're protecting their investment, they're protecting the piece. Railroads did not paint those things because when they get wet, it's slicker and it's more hazardous. If it weathers out a little bit, cracks and whatever, you get some grip for your feet when you're walking and you don't slip around and slide around so much. So this piece, you're just going to want to stain it with either alcohol and India ink or a Hunter line or a Vetero or whatever you're making your stains with. You can, if you want, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy Minwax, Varathane, whatever furniture grade stains you want. And you can stain it with that if you want. If you want this to look like dark walnut, stain it like dark walnut. Don't know why you would, but you can. But you can use house type stains in modeling. It works just fine. You do it the same way you do any other stain. Wipe it on, let it set for a little bit, wipe it off. And then that'll get you down to what you need for your color at least. All right, I'm gonna cruise around. I want to see how y'all are doing. I'm gonna grab a little water because I'm kind of thirsty.
Hey, go get a drink.
I think I will.
2 fingers?
Yeah.
One got a drink? 2 fingers or 3, there you go. 3 fingers and 2 cents plate.
Like making a hot toddy before you go to bed. It doesn't help with you to sleep. It's stay awake more than this. We had a friend of family growing up, stone sober that many he couldn't cross the street. Get a year or 2 into it, the dude could paint the Mona Lisa. It's the darndest thing I've ever seen. Just something about, I guess, getting out of his own head and, doing the thing that always got us in trouble in bars. It gets rid of your inhibition and poof, you're off the races. Yes, sir.
Where did he go?
Okay. That is going to be out on the other end. So if this guy here is your this is the stack up here.
So your building is actually on this?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is.
Yep.
And I assume that these windows go in there.
Yes.
And this is the trim, this here.
Yeah.
We do this in and out.
Yeah. Inside that.
This door is.
These 2 here.
Right. You go in and out of those.
This is inside and outside trim, and that's the door back.
Right.
One goes in there and one goes in there. Sorry.
I ran across one the other day.
It's a timber frame to hold the roof up. And you want to make sure that the one with the lines is facing out. One side has and one side doesn't. That way yes. That way the details on the outside and it looks like it's multiple pieces instead of just one.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Those go in between those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to go.
1 through.
Yeah.
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 Oh, gee. Anything else? Oh, we got something pop up.
Yeah. One side, trying to make those 2.
The thing is only on one side, they bring everything on these. This one's got both sides.
Bring everything on these.
It's got
Yeah.
one side.
Yeah. I a couple of
Just wondering as we size, is that both? So if you have it this way, you want this facing out, so you can see that little line here. So make it look like, meaning a magnifying glass to see.
And then I have ones that I have that size, there's no short rules. Here's the deal. You go in, you pick out whatever you want, you go on, you want 12, I don't care. Make a donation to the division, take it home. I want to take home the new boxes, beyond that, I want to take home the new boots. And we did that with our local kids. She brought them up and donated the rest of them. It's like, make an offer.
Yeah, but you put that on it, and it's like over the end. And that's the inside and outside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's on the actual.
That's right. One scale.
Yeah, I paid the bitch. She wanted it 3 times.
These two up there, these two cherry ones, these two.
Upper half.
Yeah.
Then seven.
Yeah, I think so.
Very dark.
Let's see.
Very, very dark.
All the trim. Everything that these little pieces. The babies are
Perfect selection, but I did the best I had.
Now, one thing I want to point out something here, Scott. This is a Vallejo from their gaming line. These are colors they mix up for like orc snot green and, you know.
Warhammer.
Yeah, elf, whatever. Yeah, this is actually a Warhammer color instead of Vallejo. But very similar colors. Don't just blow off the gamer's colors because, especially if you're looking for metallics, they've got some of the best looking metallics out there because they're painting it up with these copper, bronze, you know, silver, gold, stuff like that. And the stuff they've got has a really nice sheen to it. You'll tend to find more gaming colors, believe it or not, comic book stores. So, yeah, if you go over to, if you live on the Dallas side, there's I don't know if it's still there or not, but there's a huge comic book store over off of Parker and about Custer, maybe, something like
Madness.
that. Yes, Madness. Yep, Madness Games and Hobbies. Or games and collectibles, or something like that. Anyway, Madness has a huge selection of gaming colors, and they used to be my local go-to source for just plain old Vallejo.
doing this.
And they told me when I walked in there one day, and I noticed the whole Vallejo line rack was gone. And I asked them about it, and they said they only make paint like 2 times a year, and it's really difficult to get color from them consistently. So they actually just quit carrying the line.
I in Grapevine, there's a Warhammer store on Main Street.
Okay, cool. Yeah, did you guys catch that? Grapevine on Main Street, there's a Warhammer store over there.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to point out, I went to my local gamers comic book store, and not only it had paints, but they actually had scenery material too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they,
you know, for their
dioramas and stuff.
For dioramas and games. So I mean, it was actually pretty good selection.
Yeah, I was actually in one. Oh God, it's been 8 or 9 years ago now. And I got to talking with him. And this guy was over there actually working on a diorama, and he was amazed. I don't see. I just can't get none of this stuff to stick. I said, "You want a trick?" He goes. He looked at me like, "Yeah, sure, old man. What do you got?" You know. And I said, "Go over there off that rack." Told him where it was. I said, "Get a bottle of that matte medium and go pay for it and come back." So he comes back with his matte medium and his receipt, and I sat down and showed him how to basically put scenery down. And the guy that ran the place is like, "Would you mind coming up here some Saturday morning and teaching a class?" I said, "Sure." So ended up doing a scenery class with a bunch of Wargamer guys. It was fun. They actually had a really good time with it. Asked a lot of really good questions.
There's a place up in Duane called Reaper Miniatures.
Yes, one of my wife's best friends used to work for them.
And then there's also a Warhammer store.
Yeah.
And I think the Warhammer store said
Make it look like
Oh, and they've got a new, well, Okay, I say new. They have a new to me way of dry brushing things. And instead of just having the brush dry, you actually saturate the brush with whatever the thinner is for the paint. So if you're using acrylic, you're actually getting the brush really wet. And then you're putting just a little bit of paint on the brush, and you're using the same kind of technique as dry brushing, but the brush itself is actually very wet. And they're doing that for, like, if you're doing armor, for example, you've got a big shoulder piece. You would do that to do the bulk of that armor piece, and then you come back in and dry brush the edges, dry brush like we talk about it, you know. And it was rather interesting. I thought it kind of offered some interesting effects for sure. And I just created a mess. And I want to get the weather out later.
What about this big train station?
Duane needs to be the trim color also.
Yes. Yep, the 3 truss pieces and all the stuff for the timber frame all get painted the trim color. If you're going to build them. Say if you want to make it only a half roof, you can do that too.
That's what you want to do to add. We do the final trade. If you work, if you get if you work in here, take one cause, you sort of yourself, that kind of stuff. And different events going on, you do.
Mr. Palmer, do you remember the technical term when a board warps, what that's called? It's something compression?
No, I don't remember.
I remember you found that when we were doing that clinic, and now I can't remember what it is. The reasons boards warp when you get them wet, typically only on one side, is that's going to absorb into the wood and it expands, but the other side's dry, so it ends up kind of staying, and it forces the wood to cup up like that and warp. And this is why a lot of times we'll tell you is if you're going to do it to one side, do it to both.
It keeps everything straight.
If you practice at it long enough, you can get away without it. But again, if you're going to put lights in it, paint it inside and out.
This? I got it from,
Thank you, Harold.
Mike.
Oh, hey, Harold, does he have the list of who picked up what kits and all that? Cool. And he's got the leftover kits
They
too?
had this big staff.
Perfect, thank you.
Box of 1080s in each box. It's ridiculous. Cost me like a fucking piece of stuff. It was selling for about $10 or $15. What? He's gone. He's gone. He's gone for like a week and a half. It's not a train thing, it's like,
I know, it'll really matter to you.
Cool, thank you, sir.
I'm trying to do something a little bit different, trying. What I usually do. What's that? Probably because it was cheap and it was resistant.
That's like Pullman cars or Pullman Green. And the input system. All the Pullman cars are painted pre-painted. Yes, pre-painted.
Depends on which one you're getting. Some of them have a tendency to yellow over time. One of them tends to crack over time. So, yeah, and no matter what you use, you probably want to keep it out of direct UV.
When you have the postman wearing an eye jacket, or damn chocolate, same things we had here, they should wear. And that's, he said that was the reason they actually changed to more of a 100 race.
Chris, how you doing, sir?
That's
But the F was one.
What's that?
F was one of the blue.
Yeah, after all the.
Yeah, I've got a box of it. I
you
love
got
that
it?
stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I ordered when the guy on YouTube has a channel called Thunder Mesa Studios. It's Dave something or other. And when he mentioned that, I'm like, wonder where I can get that. Went out and did a search, and I'll be darned, Amazon. So I bought a box. I love that stuff. It's great. Yeah.
The Army Air Force. Kind of a no matter how hot they got that day.
Yeah. You know, I can only imagine studio lights and things like that, because I mean, my experience is stage lighting, you know, because I mean, I played in a band, you know, so you got those big old hot lights and the gels, and we played a place one time that had been a playhouse, and it died because, you know, nobody wants to support the arts, and they turned it into a little nightclub. We were up there playing along one night, and they had those lights cranked up, and I mean, literally, I'm sitting back there playing, and I'm watching these gels melt. Just like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that gets me on, that bothers me about TV shows about.
Oh yeah, get with your lighting director and figure out what kind of lighting you need where.
People wearing kid covers inside. Oh my God, my dad.
Yep.
Uncover. You never do that.
We had so when I was
That was process. So I got went in today.
No kidding. That sounds cool. Yeah. Oh yeah. You gotta use it once and throw it out.
That's what gets me. They're over there at the
Sure.
briefing camp.
Yep.
This is mission. I think it's still got yellow lights. Very hard cover.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, you just
That's
gotta
not appropriate for where it is.
I remember one time we had, yeah, there you go. And, yep. And I made sure I got you one with a really fine collet on one end. So it's a really fine collet on one end and a relatively fine collet on the other.
Kind of like my dad was talking about radar, where
Yeah.
full visor cap.
I don't remember.
They're all
It might be.
There's absolutely no way.
Yeah, when I was in college, there were basically two bands in town that were really hot. There was ours and a buddy of mine's band. And we loved to prank each other a lot.
They can be
So we got up there one night, and 3 or 4 of us climbed up into the light rig up above them, and they started their set. About the time they got into the 3rd song, we attacked them with Silly String. And to their credit, never missed a beat, just kept right on playing. Well, this stuff was just raining all over them. It was hilarious. Yes, sir. Okay.
I think so.
Right. I will let you know. Right. Okay. All right. We'll find out. Right. Okay. Okay. You just want me to have him cut a check for all of it, and then I send you a check, or how do you want me to do that? So it doesn't matter to me. I mean, he's got the checkbook, so we could figure. It's like, well, you're taking off the. Start to say I could. See how you are. Yeah. We'll get a second here. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Yeah. But money. Yeah, money. I'll hang out for. Take the rest of the stuff at home. Okay. Okay. That's actually going to be a Cole question. Hey, Cole, question. Should they prime the detail parts?
Yes, you can prime the detail parts. I typically paint them with like just a black Rust-Oleum spray paint. And,
Do they need to wash them?
rattle can.
Do they need to wash them first? Okay. I was thinking the washing process when you're taking them out and curing them and all that would do it. So yeah. All right. So for those who didn't catch that, your detail parts that Cole printed for you, they do not need to be washed, but you will want to prime them. Cole's preference is a flat black. Just a rattle can. He even uses Rust-Oleum. So obviously if you've got a flat Testors or Tamiya or something like that with a smaller pigment of paint, that would work well too, but just a flat black as a primer. I found a product called Stynal Res that was recommended to me by a friend of mine who shoots it out of his airbrush. They make a flat black, and you can buy that over here at Hobbytown over in Hearst. Maybe the other hobby towns might also have it. I also saw a video on YouTube just this week, and I sent that out to the group, by the way, if you haven't seen it yet. There is a new, or at least new to me, primer out there, and I think it's called UVM. If you're interested, hit me up, and I will text you a link to the YouTube video. He actually shot it. There was about 7 or 8 different colors of primer, and he even went to the point where he shot it on a tank model and then started taking things and scraping on it to see how durable it would be. And shockingly enough, really durable. So if you're interested in that, let me know, and I'll make sure you get a link. In fact, I may even just grab a link and I'll send it over to Dick or something, to maybe so they can pass it out to the whole division. Yeah, okay. So Eric, I'll send that to you and we can get it out. But yeah, it's a neat little deal. Okay, so I see some folks are already packing up, so let's talk about homework then, really quickly. Oh yeah, if you're going to get the Rust-Oleum side, get the camo flat black, because that is dead flat. All right, basic assembly. You need something that will help keep it square, whether that's a machinist square, a fancy little set of magnets, like the ones that I've used in here in the past, where we've used, I've used these from Kaufman Graphics. I really like these. They are a little pricey, but even just a set of plain old machinist squares, you can take these two walls and glue them together and line them up. And you can set them up there, hold them for a little bit, and maybe pop another square up against it. Yeah, you've got these guys here have come along. There's a company up in Missouri, just north of Joplin, making these things. And these are really nice. They actually came and had a booth at the Plano Train Show a couple of years ago. And these work off of magnets, and they work really well. I've been pretty tickled with those. I need to get a set. There are times... Okay. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up. Anytime you are putting two walls together to make an L shape and one of the walls has a peak, that wall needs to be on the outside of the joint. The straight wall will glue to the back side of that wall. Okay? Now, there is a construction method that a lot of people like to use where they'll glue a piece of strip wood to the outer edge, and then they'll cut the bevel onto the end of that. It does give you more prototypically sized trim. However, this kit is not designed to be built like that. This kit is designed for you to take this straight wall, this peaked wall, glue the straight wall to the back side of the peaked wall. And the reason you do this is, and we'll see if we can get this to show up on the camera. If you put this on the inside edge, the wall, the roof, see how it goes straight down? Now watch what happens if you put up the wall on the outside edge of it. You end up, it's not as...
Show a little more.
I'm having to think backwards. It's harder to see it, but way down there at the bottom you can see a gap. And what happens is that wall creates a standoff, and then your roof sticks out a little bit. And then you've got to put a piece of trim up there to hide it. And that's...
People continually do that. I can't figure that out.
Oh, dude, I don't know. But like I say, there's a couple of really well-known YouTubers out there who've got very large channels, and every time they do that, I want to throw the remote at the television.
I mean, I typically get into doing construction. That's one of the first things I'm like, okay, no,
Yeah, absolutely not. Stop right there. Okay, so homework. Since everybody's starting to pack up and everybody's starting to get hungry. Go ahead and glue your 4 walls together. Go ahead and build your loading dock. Next month, we will build out the doors, put the trim on it, we'll put the roof on it, and I'll show you how to start your shingles, and then you can take that home and finish it up that way. All right? I'll bring signage, I'll bring the window glass, and I'll bring the shingle material. If you have something that you would like to make your building other than some things I have already talked about, drop me a note, shoot me a text, call me up, and let me know what it is. If you've got artwork in particular that you would like, send that to me. If you got like, just, I want to make this a auto parts store. Okay, fine. Let me see what I can dig up. I don't know why you would, but okay. But this is one of those things where if it's a small little business or part of a bigger business, and it's something where they're going to store some smaller things. I mean, you look what Dick's talked about doing with turning this into a storage facility for a mining operation. That is a great application for this structure. A small little freight house. There's just, like I say, there's a lot of options with a building this size, and it's just big enough for one car. And if you really do it right on your railroad, you'll find a spot to put it where it's in line with something else. So the car that's spotted there, you got to make them move it to get to the car in the back and then put it back, that kind of thing. It's because operations always brings out our sadistic size.
No kidding.
But now, next month, you'll need your same set of tools, but I will recommend one addition. Get you a very wide black magic marker and bring that with you. If you don't have that or don't want to fool with that, take your 2 roof deck pieces and paint them a flat black on the outside. That way, if there's any gaps in your shingle materials, it'll look like you're seeing into the tar paper. Also, when you go to mess with this, you're going to note that one of these roof pieces is a 32nd of an inch wider than the other one. There is a reason for that. When you mount them over the peak, you will take the shorter one of the two, mount it right up to the edge of the peak. The longer one will then overlap it by that edge, and you don't end up with that little gap there at the top of your roof that so many kits end up with that you end up having to try to fill with strip wood. Thank you, Mr. Palmer, for that observation. That has become a great addition to the kits. All right, everybody good on their instructions? All right, I'll be here for a little bit longer, and if you've got anything, let me know. If you've got any questions after this and you're at home, like I say, you know how to get a hold of me. Give me a call, and I'll be happy to help you out.
And don't forget, the whole thing's on video too, so you check the video.
Sir.
This video, these windows, loadings,